Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Payman Taei, who is the CEO of Visme, and we'll talk about Visme a little bit later. But first, Payman, tell me a little bit more about the troubles you see with corporations and how they're dealing with onboarding new team members, what kind of challenges they're seeing with training new folks.
Sure. So I'll speak to some of the challenges that we've had, and I guess some of them will hold true to other organizations. I believe the challenges are different among different orgs as far as their structure and setup, but I believe a lot has to do with the size of the organization. We would fall into the small, medium size, I guess. We're about approaching 100 employees in the near future, in somewhere in the 90s right now. So it's much different than it used to be when we were 20 employees or 10 employees or even 50. So as the numbers grow, the foundation of the business changes as far as training and onboarding. It has for us. So one of them that we've been able to see a direct correlation is that if you do proper onboarding of your employees and set proper expectations early on, and set certain guides and the metrics to be met that's agreed on by both sides, that can certainly enhance and improve the onboarding, the future prospect of that individual. Now, one of the challenges that I think a lot of large organizations may have is that there is a lot of stepping stones in order to reach the hiring individual, especially if it's, let's say, not a managerial role, because often those individuals are hired by managers, and those managers may be reporting to a supervisor, and a supervisor may be reporting to a VP. So you have this trickle down of what that individual's training process would be. Sometimes that may be at the sector or at the level of that manager. And so there may be other aspects to the organization that may not directly trickle down. So especially as an organization changes, those values may be the same, but certain structures and certain cultural aspects may be changing. And so over time, there can be this disparity that may occur from one division to another. When you're a smaller organization, such as, let's say, in the tens of employees or 100, there isn't as many stepping stones. It may just be manager and then founder, CEO, or, so that layer is much less. And so there's a lot more communication between the top exec level to the manager levels. And so there isn't a lot of layers to go through. So I think that is how I kind of see that there's no one fix for all, where some of the things that I may be sharing today would work for any other organization. It may work for an organization of similar size, but different for others.
And so we talked about just onboarding in general. How has that been impacted by hybrid work and remote work? Tell me a little bit more about that from your perspective.
Quite a bit, I think. I mean, we were already a hybrid mode before the pandemic started, but we were a ratio of more along the lines of 4-to-1, where for every 4 individuals remote, we have 1 individual on site at our office in the DC area. That is more in the lines of 10 or 11-to-1 now. So pretty much majority of the company is remote. And so it's very different as that has correlated. Was your question in regards to how has that changed? If you could repeat that question.
Yes.
Yeah.
How has it changed?
The effectiveness of it, I think, hasn't really changed much, because whether an individual was here or remote, we still had onboarding documents and we had similar training material. And it's just that there isn't a face-to-face direct interaction other than through Zoom. So there's individuals that you may meet through Zoom that you've never met as an employee. And when you actually see them face-to-face, there is just the demeanor and everything is a little bit different. So you really don't have this direct live interaction. Although, the best case scenario would be synchronous calls, such as, one we're having right now. So I think that in general, in terms of what, it is a challenge is that you don't have this direct human factor. So you have to overcome it through other means. More and more work became asynchronous over time. And for us, that works wonderfully well. In fact, we rather do less meetings here at Visme than have more of them. But at the same time, because you don't have a direct human-to-human interaction, you have to overcome it through other means. So the way the onboarding process occurs now, we set certain metrics and certain guidelines, 30, 60, 90 day, for example, that looking back, it would be no different than, let's say, if the individual was here. So long story short, it hasn't been a huge challenge, but I think what has been a challenge for us has been the cultural aspect, because we hire across different countries and different states in the US. And so as a result, individuals are from different ethnicities, different walks of life, different age groups, and different even religious associations and so on. So we've ensured that some of the values that we keep at Visme, as long as those are transparent across the lines, it doesn't matter what what part of the world you are from.
So that's interesting. When I think about the transmission of values, I help 22 organizations figure out their long-term hybrid and remote work arrangements as part of my consulting. And we've seen the onboarding be a challenge, what you're talking about, but also after that, the acculturation, the integration. How does a junior team member actually integrate into the company? So what I've generally done is setting up a variety of mentoring programs where onboarding rolls smoothly into mentoring. So, onboarding for the first 30 days and then mentoring for the next couple of years. And so I'm curious what you've done at Visme to address the need to integrate junior staff and build up those connections, which previously, when people met face-to-face much more, there was a natural way of building up those connections. But mentoring is a way of building up those connections and that cultural integration that replaces that natural interaction that used to happen when people were coming to the office. I'm curious about what you do to address that the cultural integration and the building up of connections.
So part of it is that we've set it up so that we do a lot of our communication asynchronously through Slack, although we have different teams have Zoom meetings and other Google Meets and so on as needed. But through the asynchronous communication, there is a certain level of transparency in that anybody from any division could essentially reach another individual or another department if they want to. The engineering, and the sales or marketing or design, we have certain channels that anybody can get together. So we have a birthday channel, we have an inspiration channel, we have a hit like channel, we have a social channel just for anything related to social interactions. Doesn't matter if it's your pet or whatever. We have a pets channel. A lot of the people here at Visme, they have anywhere from cats and lizards to dogs and so on. So they're proud of and very passionate about the animals and so on that they have, the pets that they have, and therefore they're share that and use that as a channel. So, for example, to connect with someone across another company who may also be a cat and lover and you're a cat lover. So those are kind of some of the things that are sprinkled in between, and it's kind of just natural. It's not really monitored, or we need to empower people to go and communicate in those channels. So that's helped us to some degree. So I think those type of interactions don't really have they bring different cultures and individuals from walks of life together, regardless of the language barrier. An image of your cat spinning around his tail, anybody from any culture would laugh at that, right? So it kind of breaks the ice in that manner. But also, for example, some of the accomplishments, the team may be working on a certain feature, and they may be involved in just the engineering portion and coding part of it. And there's a UI UX team that helped to design it. And then eventually the marketing takes over and, brings that product into, let's say, the market and announces it. And then eventually, an enterprise or some users may use it, and they may, voice it on social media or on our internal community. I love this new feature and so on. So those are shared as kind of small wins back to the organization. So it allows now to from all the way from the top. Now the sales is connected to the design, to the UI, UX, and marketing, and so on. So that's another element that helps to bring people together here.
Well, those are, I think, useful techniques. Anything else that you've learned during you've said that your organization was hybrid, now it's more remote. What else have you learned and what have you done differently to adapt to this new way of working?
Um, I think a certain degree. So I think one of the biggest challenges has been time zones, because time zones, we have as much as 12-hour difference in time zones
Wow.
across some of our team members. Most are within a 4 to 6 hour time zone. So it's, usually the first 3 hours is, 4 hours, the last 4 hours of that other team. So they're able to connect in those cases. They can communicate anytime if they want to, but, during regular work hours, they would consider. And so another, the challenge of the disparity between the hours has been something that has been challenging for us. And one of the ways that we've kind of overcome it is, or I've had to learn, is patience. It's very difficult as a founder and so on, because you're on the go, you're literally running all the time.
Sure,
You want
sure.
things to go fast. So there's a certain level of that you have to learn and balance. And so some of the learning points has been, how do we, instead of functioning as a 9 to 5 across the board organization, where we're all in the same time zone, how do we work where it still feels like 9 to 5 and yet you're working different hours? So using some, regular software, task management, Slack, and, our own tool with certain areas that allows collaboration and commenting and so on, if it's creating content and pitch decks, allows the asynchronous part of it, where you deliver your task, you provide proper specifications and expectations, and then passes on to the next person. And by the time you're asleep, that individual may be working on it, and then by the time you wake up, things are ready for you to be reviewed, and so you provide your feedback. So it takes longer in that it's not all solved within that one part, but it's on the other side, advantage is that it's like it's an engine that is on 24/7. There's somebody doing something all the time. So that is something that is worked pretty well for us, and we had to learn how to adapt with it.
Okay, interesting. The way I help my clients do that is usually setting up some common time, like 11 to 3 Eastern time or something like that. And that works well. But I understand what you're saying about the difference between the 12-hour time zones. Now, I want to ask you a little bit more about your product and your company. So can you tell the listeners who don't know about Visme what you do, what the company does?
Sure. So we've been explaining and putting the words as far as how others talk about us, and also how I would explain what our tool is. The outside world are users who, are in love with our platform, and they use it for almost anything that comes to marketing, for external or internal communication. The sales and marketing call us PowerPoint on steroids. We have been called like the perfect tool that marries the simple with the powerful features. But the way that I would explain it is, we are a all-in-one visual communication platform that allows businesses, brands, to create next level content that they can be absolutely proud of, and they can do it in less time. So, where some of the other platforms, there's two types of platforms out there, or tools that you use to create designs, presentations, documents, and so on. There is the dumbed down level, not saying it in a negative manner, but they're dumbed down to allow you very quick, easy to get into. But as a result, they have to be restrictive. So you can get in quick, but there is corners that have to be closed off so that you don't go too far out and it becomes overwhelming. To, let's say, versus tools that are very powerful, heavily feature rich, require learning curve, and they're really meant for the top design, content creation professionals. And so our platform has been created to marry the best of those worlds. It is simple enough to use, and yet it is also powerful. So that at the beginning, it looks like any other platform. Hey, this looks like another platform that I used to create social media graphics or presentations and so on. But then there's Easter eggs, there's features, there's things that are embedded nicely underneath, so that when you want to create more interactive content, more interactive documents or flip books or ebooks, presentations, short videos, you have complete control from very quickly creating and going all the way to where you can create something that stands out over, let's say, what other competitors or companies are creating. And also our platform brings together collaboration. So teams and businesses can create on-brand content. They can set brand guidelines. And so that the designs, the content that they create is on brand, down to the specifications of their fonts, color schemes, and so on that their marketing or design may require. So that essentially is, in so many words, what our platform does.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Are there any last words which you wish to leave our listeners with before we wrap up this podcast?
No, I would I'll just add in is that, if you're looking to create that next design or document or presentation and you want it to be look better or stand out over competitors, you want to be able to do in less time, our platform is free to use, to try out and play with. So you can go to visme.com or .co, VISME. And, my biggest ask always to people is spend more than 15 or 20 minutes on it, no more than 30, because that's when things start opening up and you see all the assets and features that are unique to our platform.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. And thank you to the listeners for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and make sure to leave a review, which really helps others discover the show and helps us improve the show. All right, everyone. I'll see you on the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.